Our two speakers for tonight, Nicole Nardelli from Money Farm. You see her there, a big applause. And Maria Teresa Stella from Cerved, here sitting in front. The fan club. Okay. As always, the kind of joke that we make, who's here for the first time at Speck&Tech? Can you raise your hand? Okay, some 15 people. We'll be very brief this time because otherwise people get bored that we tell the story of Speck&Tech every single time. But to be very brief, we started in 2016 in this very space. The room was empty. Of course, it got packed during the night, but we were some 40 people, and now we are over 100, which is nice. The name came immediately. The spec came a few episodes later, and at the end of the night, we will have spec and beers for everyone. So as soon as we finish the talk, don't run away, unless you want to save more spec for the others. The room got very packed. Back in 2017, we were 100, 150, 160 people, and then we moved to another venue, and then there was COVID. We became a podcast. This year, at the beginning of the year in 2022, we kind of have a reshuffling of the people involved in Speck&Tech. We came out with new ideas. And actually, these are the people that are behind the organization of Speck&Tech, and I think all of them deserve a very warm applause from the room. It's an evolving association. Some people come, some people stay, some people come for a while and then leave. For example, our friend Julia, who's here, I'll leave the word to you. Microfono. Oh, I talk for you. Acceso?
Okay, thank you. So basically, I'm leaving from Germany, then I will come back, and I want to say goodbye to you, but also Giulio wanted to say goodbye to all Speck&Tech community.
Ciao Giulio!
I'm Giulio. I once was the presenter of Speck&Tech with Francesco.
Hilarious.
I was the fun one. Thank you. From France, quote. Long story short, I had some personal issues, which is the reason why I disappeared for a while. It was kind of like sad. But on the other hand, like I wanted to like let everyone know that I still love Speck&Tech. I'm super happy to see this full again of people, and I love the fact that the association is still growing without me, which was not really which emphasized the fact that it was the fun one, which is apparently not a skill which is that necessary, apparently. I just wanted to say goodbye and say I'm still alive. I will still participate to events when I can, but my work life is kind of like a mess right now, so I don't see myself having the energy to follow the project anymore. And yeah, I'm just here to say goodbye to the association, and also to encourage you in engaging with the new activities. As you can see, right now there is kind of a shuffle, like Franz said a second ago. Making an association alive is kind of a lot of work, which is why I'm not doing it anymore, because I'm kind of maniac, and if I can't do stuff in the way I like, I kind of like go crazy. So I encourage you go crazy instead of me, and join Speck&Tech. So I left the room for the rest of the guys. Thank you everybody, and have a fun night.
And
Thank you.
And of course, you're free to talk to Giulio and to the rest of the guys on the night for a beer. And the rest of the people starting engaging on another number of activities this year. If you don't know about that, we launched Speck&Trek, which was actually another format where we bring nerds in these kind of new environments, which are the mountains, the outside world. And we went hiking 3 times this year, and we plan to do even more next year. Another activity that we launched this year, thanks to the new entry, to the new people that came into the association, is El Smartphone, which in dialect means the smartphone, if you're not aware, which was a series of 3 events with people that are not very literate and not very keen on technology. Francesco, Piero, Luca, Eduardo were basically teaching all these, teaching our grandparents, our grandmothers, our aunts, people of a certain age, but in general, people that are not a lot into tech, telling them what's a cookie, what's a smartphone, how the web works, setting up application on the smartphone, telling them, look, this is a fake news, etc. And it was a success. Like, we got 40 participants every single Saturday. It was amazing. And you see how crazy these people went into learning how that they don't have to click on accept, otherwise they're going to steal your data and sell it on the black market, for example. It was very rewarding, and I would say a big applause to the guys who brought on this initiative. Julia.
Okay, so as as told you, friends, basically one of the huge killer features of Speck&Tech is the amazing networking you can have after the talks. These are our models for
Brand
showing you
ambassadors.
that it's amazing, this network. You can have a with all the people you can meet here. And we don't charge you for anything, it's totally free. However, you can support us with the association, and so having all the talks and stuff and events by buying these lovely t-shirts. They are super quality, super design, amazing. And also we have in these years designed amazing stickers you can put on your PC or smartphone or whatever. Also on places in the mountains, if you go, like Human Safari, you can do it. We will appreciate that much. And now, today, we have a super surprise, because we have the new ones for this year. And you can find them at the table. Nicola is there. And you can donate with Satispay, cash, organs, whatever you want to, if you really love Speck&Tech. And Satispay, your phone, everything is welcome. And also you can stay tuned with all the events. You saw we do Speck&Tech, we did the retreat, we will tell you more later. And so you can stay tuned to all the events, all the updates and stuff in our social media pages. Telegram, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. If you do stories tonight on Instagram, tag us, we will be very happy. And after all, maybe tonight, tomorrow, you can leave a supportive critic or constructive critic to help us grow. But
Even negative.
Yeah.
We like negative feedback.
Especially
the fact that Julia and I talk too much.
Exactly. And also, it's really important to get really involved into we want you to participate tonight, and you can do it with slide.do st48 to make questions. We will make 2 speakers.
It's actually even more important than other times. You can not only see the questions, upvote the questions from others, or even ask the questions yourself to the speakers. But this time, the second talk will be kind of engaging. We will have a quiz with actual prizes. I don't know, did you decide any prize? No, okay. We will give the prizes, a slice of Speck, anyway. So you can actually engage in the talk via this very link. On slide.do/48, we will have basically the question coming up, and there is going to be a quiz, okay? That's it.
Okay, yes.
We're starting with the first speaker of the night, NICOLE NARDELLI. Welcome on stage.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah. Oh, okay, so I was pressing the wrong button. Okay. So hello, everyone. Thanks to all of you for coming here tonight, and thanks also to Speck&Tech for having me here today to talk to you. I'm so happy that I can share my experience with you, and today I decided to bring a topic that it's very close to my heart, which is collaboration and the engagement of other people inside design work. And to do that, I decided to bring some challenging situations that I faced and also all the things that I learned from those situations. But before starting, as Franz already said, I'm Nicole and I work as a product designer at MoneyFarm. So for those of you, oh, wrong button again, for those of you who don't know what MoneyFarm is a digital wealth manager born to help people improve their financial well-being by making investments simple. And here at MoneyFarm, I'm involved in the design of digital experiences for financial products that then we sell to our clients, both in Italy and in the UK. But before MoneyFarm, I worked as the only designer in a small agency, and is here that I started to get interested in the topic of how to better involve other people inside my work. Because that was the only way for me to get feedback on what I was working on a daily basis. But after 2 amazing years, I decided that it was time for me to go and see how it would be like to be part of a design team. And here I joined the MoneyFarm design team. But not just that, because I also joined a product team. And there are several product teams at MoneyFarm, of course. There is not just the one that I'm in. And each product team is structured around specific goal or specific product lines. And our product team, as I already mentioned, is focused on the discovery and the delivery of financial products. And in order to do that, there are several roles inside the team that allows us to reach those goals. We have mobile developers, back-end developers, web developers, a tech lead, a QA, a designer, who is me, and a product owner, who is responsible for giving us day-to-day direction and who is ultimately responsible for our work inside the team. I spend most of my time inside the product team. We could say that the product team is almost like my home. But although I work full-time inside the product team, I'm also accountable to my design team, and especially to my design manager, who is also giving me some kind of direction on my work. So once a week, as most design teams probably do, we also have a design critique meeting that allows us to discuss what we are working on or get feedback on the projects we are working on. And once a week, I always tried to bring something to the design team table. But what I was usually getting were pretty unactionable feedback, and even the basis of what we were working on inside the product team were put into question. But still, I was going back to my product team to try to discuss all those feedback together, and each time we were coming to the conclusion of ignoring the feedback from the design team and move on, because those feedback were kind of lacking of context and were pretty unactionable. And moreover, we were already started working on those things that we received feedback on most of the time. I knew that some of those feedback and consideration were super valid, and ignoring them was making me feel like I wasn't doing my best work. And I was also pretty confused because I didn't know who I had to follow, my product owner, and forget about the design team's feedback, or my design team and try to improve what we were doing inside the product team. But with time, I started to ask for feedback to the design team less and less, because I realized that all those feedback that we were receiving were not really helping the product team moving forward, but were creating more noise than helping us. And I wasn't the only one, actually, because with time, those design critiques that we were having were like getting more similar to a stand-up meeting where we were just like saying what we were working on instead of having like deep design discussion on the work. So we sat at a table all together to start discussing what was going on and why those like sessions weren't really working, and we found out a few things. So we already said that slightly. So we were receiving a lot of irrelevant feedback. So there's a lot going on inside product team. We have lots of interactions, lots of discussions on a daily basis, and instead, in the design team, it was just once a week. So it was very difficult for us to keep the same level of alignment and shared understanding between the two teams. And of course, the feedback we were getting was lacking of feedback and was like hardly applicable. Other times, the feedback we were getting was actually good, but the problem is that it was coming too late. We were getting this feedback too late. And the fact is that the design stage we are at matters when asking for feedback. And this is like a picture from the book Discussing Design, if you're interested in. And the fact is that during the life of our design, there are several stages. We have a stage at the very start of the project when maybe we don't have all the context to actually ask for feedback in a structured way. Then we have another like piece of this life of a design cycle, let's call it like that, when it's almost at the end of this life of a design. And at that point, all the decisions have already been made, and there's not really much we can change because, again, the work is mainly focused on the delivery and execution. But then there is all this like big piece in the middle where actually we are still discovering things, we are still exploring solutions, and at that point it makes sense to like actually ask for feedback because we can actually, those feedback can actually influence our work and we can still like make some changes. But I already said that, like, given the structure of our critiques, we had this critique once a week, from one week to another, lots of things that could have changed. We go very fast inside the product team, and all of that was leading us to asking for feedback when it was too late, or even not at all, because maybe we already like delivered everything, and so at that point it was too late. So again, we had a quick brainstorm all together, and we came up with the idea of having those critiques not just once a week mandatory, but once a day optional. And in order to allow everybody to ask for feedback whenever they need it, and then have this like always open door to get to the design team and ask for feedback. So of course, we haven't solved all our problem. This is still like a little experiment, but I think that just being aware of all the things that can get in the way of asking for feedback and all the things that were making it difficult for us to ask for feedback and putting into sync the product team with the design team really was, I mean, at least helping me understanding how to engage with this like team in a better way. And this was supposed to be the end of my talk, but then something happened that made me rethink a bit the whole picture of what I just told you here. And some time ago, we were working on a project inside my product team. And from the start to the beginning of the project, lots of things had changed. And the first thing is that we realized that the project was more complex than we were thinking it was. And then, while we were working on a project, a war broke out, and the market started doing what it usually does when disruptive things in the world happen. But in the meantime, the company keeps growing. There are lots of people coming in with new ideas and new approaches, and still, in the meantime, we keep working on this project. We keep going on and starting to delivering little things into test for our employees, in beta for our employees to get it tested. And when we realized that inside the company, everybody is talking about this project. And then we realized why. It was because another team wasn't really happy about what we were working on, because it wasn't really helping them reaching the goals they had set for themselves, given the new market conditions. And of course, after a while, also the leadership came in, and they weren't really happy either. And of course, neither were we. And so we sat at a table together, and we decided that we had 2 weeks to try to steer the project and make it work with the new constraints that we received. And so after an initial state of demoralization, because we didn't had just to redo the project basically, but also to regain the trust and the credibility of our team, we rolled up our sleeve and we started working on it all together with super tight collaboration across various disciplines. And we made it. We were able to make this work, and everybody was super happy. We were super happy. The project was kind of working and going forward. But then we came back to reality and we asked ourselves, what happened? The fact is that I talked about a product team and a design team, but there's not just us. Product work happens in the context of the broader organization. There are various teams and various stakeholders who have interest in our work, who have specific goals to reach thanks to our work. And they can really help us seeing problems from different perspectives and really help us problem solve things thanks to their knowledge. So, as we all know, it's not enough to just do a great job. We need also to bring others along the way with us. And I think that design can really help us in doing that, because as designer, we own a very special place inside the product development process, because we are the ones responsible of turning thoughts and ideas into something tangible. And humans are visual creatures, and oops, wrong button. And this is why there are many conversations happening around design. This is why design is triggering so many conversations. And conversations that are not just related to design, but they can spiral from product, tech, marketing, asset allocation, commercial, and really everybody can have their voice and give their contribution. And also decision, because if we think about it, design work, it's a collector of decision. It's not just design decision, but it's everybody's decision collected into one single output. The problem is that if those conversations are happening at the end, well, we all know what this means. So we all know that this conversation needs to happen, but for some reason, those conversations sometimes are not happening. And sometimes it's because we fail to create the opportunities for those conversations to happen. And as I already said, there are lots of things going on inside product teams. We have lots of interaction, discussion, lots of iteration. Things are moving super quickly. And sometimes it's pretty difficult to keep the same level of alignment between teams. And also, working remotely doesn't really help, because communication needs to be pushed intentionally. All those conversations that were happening almost naturally when we were at the office just a few desks away, now are not happening anymore by accident, but really needs to be intentionally put in place. And also, including other people in our work, it's hard, because including people in our work and being open to feedback means also being open to put things into discussion and being open to start changing things. And imagine you spend hours of your time with your team trying to figure out how to solve a certain issue, trying to merge all those disciplines together to really find how to make things work, and then someone comes in with maybe even less context than you, I mean, it's hard. Maybe you have also tight deadline. It's not easy. And it's very easy to find ourselves thinking things like, we don't need this. We own that part of the product, and we can take decision by ourselves. Or, we don't have time for this right now. Let's do when we will have more time. Or again, just let's move on. Let's move on. We don't need this right now. And of course, while we think all this, we end up delaying all those conversations. And of course, procrastinating all those conversations. And it's very easy to end up finding ourselves working in a silo without even realizing it. So how do we avoid falling into those traps and create the space for conversation to happen? So within our team, we asked ourselves this question, and we came to the conclusion that we had to make it easy for us to share our work more, to make it almost like automatic, so without having to think about it. And this can be done by developing some habits to share our work more, or like by building some routines. And it could be like after a certain milestone or on a regular cadence. And we really like this like regular cadence kind of thing to share our work, because this like forces us to do it. I mean, the meeting is there, and there's no alternative rather than to like share something, put something out there, and raise topics. And this really puts us into the position of starting off a conversation. And another thing that we started doing more is increasing transparency around design work, increasing visibility also around design work. So the company gives us lots of opportunity, like to come together. We have knowledge sharing session, we have product demos, we have town halls. So as a team, we started like leveraging a lot more all those moments to like share our work, make it more visible, and really like show people that we are there, we are open to get feedback, and really also try to build connection, build opportunities, like create opportunities to have those conversations and build relationship across the company. Other time, we succeeded at creating those opportunities, but some people are left out from the conversation. And here I want to bring like a personal experience. Because when I first joined Monifarm, it was the first time for the company of having like one product designer for each product team. And we were still learning how to work together. And we realized at a certain point that we were having like all separate conversation. Like the product owner was having product conversation, the product designer was having design conversation, and the tech lead was having tech conversation. And moreover, we were relying a lot on the product owner for all the conversation happening outside the product team. And this was creating some issue, because first we had to deal with like diluted information, because you know, like the broken telephone game doesn't really work, because at the end you end up with an information that is completely different from the one from the beginning. And this also doesn't really give us the opportunity to like ask further questions and learn more also about the company and share knowledge. And again, conversation happening around design have very blurred boundaries, and I would say also around product have very blurred boundaries. And so also having all those separate conversations wasn't really giving us the chance to start like really leveraging each other discipline and really problem solve things together. So what we started doing is that we started sharing a lot more the ownership of those conversations. And I realized that the amount of information that I was like losing was enormous, because really, while also talking to other people in the company, you learn so much, and I was losing a lot like of knowledge. And sharing also more the ownership of those conversations allowed me also to like build more relationships around the company, which is something that it's super important. not just to build knowledge, but like to build connection around the company, and then also asking for feedback around, collaborating around, because it becomes much easier because you have those connections, you have those relationships around the company. Other times, we do have the opportunity for the conversation to happen. We have all the right people in the room, but we are failing at having real conversations. Sometimes we are so focused on moving things forward, we are so focused on getting approval and validation from the people in front of us, that we are kind of forgetting about like having a two-way conversation and try to build the ground for a real collaboration with the people in front of us. But if we start to shift the focus from the artifact to the conversation, at that point we can really focus on what's going on in the room and like really keeping attention about the conversation that it's like triggered from those artifacts that we're showing, instead of like obsessively trying to defend our work or articulating every decision obsessively. And this, we can, at that point, also ask a thought-provoking question that will trigger conversation. So we can't expect every time like conversation to trigger out by themselves, but we need like to provoke them. And it's like by shifting also the focus from the artifact to the conversation, we can really treat the artifact as something like very separate from us, like being very detached, and also trying to stress test it. Like we are testing our designs with our customer, why not doing the same with our stakeholders? And we can do that by asking thought-provoking questions that we know will probably open up a can of worms, but at least we can start to like get all the ambiguity answered, and this is super important like in discovery when you're working on very ambiguous projects. You can use this approach to like getting all your question answered by just like put everything on the table, even something that it's completely wrong, just to get your question answered and like trigger those conversations earlier than later. Sooner rather than later. So other times we created the space, we are having a real conversation, like a two-way conversation, but we are not having the same conversation. And what we share has an impact on our conversation. We, as designer, we produce lots of deliverables, and all those deliverables can trigger, of course, different kind of conversation. And all those deliverables are kind of supporting our thinking, but they can also really help us in communicating our work and our thinking to other people. Once we were in a meeting and we were like sharing a user journey with lots of post-it notes that designers really love, and the response that we got at the end was like, all good, we can move forward, and no question. So we all know what this means. So either you've done like a great job from the beginning, or probably the people in front of us didn't really get what we just showed them. Another time, we were sharing like a higher fidelity prototype. And this time, again, we were kind of like asking questions to participants to see like if there were any question or concern. But this time, the response that we got, it was this, like, it's wartime. Like, everybody wanted to say something, and the conversation that gets triggered were going like from architecture to content to strategy, like it was a mess. Humans are visual creatures, and like seeing things with our own eyes help us understand what's going on and understand things. But the thing is that if we are sharing abstract documentation, this kind of hardly triggers discussions, because as we said, as humans, we are visual creatures. This needs lots of effort for people to be conceptualized and to be understand, and it can be a real struggle for the people who did not actively participate in building those kind of things to understand what's going on. On the other hand, overly polished design are actually triggering conversation, because at that point, people can clearly see what's going on. They can clearly see the product, how it would look like. The only issue is that if conversation are starting at this point, it's probably too late, because overly polished design are kind of introducing too many factors to the conversation, and this is why we end up with situation where people are starting giving lots of different kind of feedback, like also on different layers, basically. And we're basically ending up like talking about different things on the same thing, basically. So how can we better support our conversation? And by basically helping people to, well, first, like trying to use the right kind of deliverable at the right time. But the second way is to like try to help people visualize also abstract things to also all the people that are not actively involved in the work. For example, by telling stories, and this is something that we are restarting to do, because also we, in very recent project, we started to reuse all storyboarding exercises, which is not really a tool that I've been using when I started working, to be honest. So we really show the work in a way that it's digestible to people, or also like walking people through our design by telling stories. So by telling a story of the customer doing things through our product and not like pieces of screen can really help. These are priority guides, and this is something that we also started using, and this is an alternative to wireframes. And it's, as you can see, there's no layout here, there's just content. And this really helps us like put the focus on the content and not on the UI. And again, also very low fidelity models. So I don't know if you can see here, but there are like screens without anything on them. But I mean, it's like more digestible than a flow chart with lots of boxes or like post-it notes, because this like gives a sense of space and not just information. It gives you the idea that there will be something there and makes everything more digestible. So really think about what I'm sharing is like digestible to the people who are in front of me. So learning how to involve others in our work is crucial, and but it also takes a lot of effort, and it's not super easy to do it, but we need to do it because this can really help us make or break our design. And I think that awareness is our most powerful weapon, because if we start like being mindful about all the conversation happening around product work and around design work, and we start asking ourselves all a set of questions. So are we pushing for opportunities? Is everyone who needs to be there? Are we having a valuable two-way conversation, or are we having the same conversation can really help us like try to understand what we are doing and then try to improve it. So these, if you're interested, are some very useful books around all those topics that I just talked about, and thank you so much. Then maybe there are questions, but then if you want to have a chat or like talk about this or like other stuff, I'm happy to have a chat. Oh yes, sure. Oh, sorry, wrong button. Not even at the end of the presentation I'm able to use it.
But UX for the button, for the commander. Okay, thank you so much. We have some interesting questions. Okay, let's start with something strong. If you could tell something to your younger self at the beginning of your career, what would it be?
Yeah, it would probably be like don't rely on hierarchies and get the feedback you need. Like, don't be afraid of going around the company and ask to your colleagues to being introduced to other people, and really like build connection, build relationships around the company, because these are like one of the most powerful tools we can use.
Awesome, thank you. What is your approach to communicate what you do to non-design people or team inside the company?
Yes, so we are pretty, how can we say, lucky, because inside of our company, they kind of all value the design work and what we do as designer. I would probably say bringing people along the journey with you. It's what we just talked about, but really like inviting people to the table, making them part of your process, making them also design with you or doing things together can really be helpful. Something that we also started doing, for example, for user research is to like we started like inviting non-designer, like product people, tech people as well, like to participate in those like user testing session, and they were kind of surprised, happy at the same time, because it was something super new for them. So I would say probably make them experience things with you. So like share experiences together.
Yeah, make them put your hands on what you're doing.
Yeah.
Now we need something crucial for Christmas lunch. It's a problem for all of us. Imagine you have to explain what you do for work to your grandmother. What do you tell her?
Yes, probably I would say well, to my grandmother, yeah, I said, yeah, probably help inside the company, like to rush. No, this is not. It's too complex. Like, yeah, creating better products.
Okay, take note, everyone. So, no excuses to not give answers. How did you get to know all these things?
Studying. Yeah, no, I'm really passionate about the topic, so I really love reading books and all this kind of stuff. So, and I also write sometimes, and this really helped me because, yeah, maybe you can read things, but then when you start like writing things down, you really start to like learning things. And this really did help me a lot, like writing things and build my own opinions on things. Because, yeah, when you write down, you put things down and you start thinking about things more deeply, basically. So, yeah, if I could give an advice, like write stuff, like also on your own, you don't have like to publish things out there if you don't want to, but like write things down, yeah, it's really helpful.
Okay, so we have to thank our teachers to make us writing so many reports for design works. What is the biggest issue you still have after these tentatives?
After these tentatives, the biggest issue that I have, it's, yeah, still like, there will still be like unknowns in what we do as I mean, our work. Probably you realized it. There will always be like some degree of ambiguity, and sometimes we kind of not be able to spot everything right away. So yeah, when you need to like try to like repair to some like things that you haven't discovered from the very beginning, yeah, this is kind of it can be a problem, not just for us, of course, but for the whole team and the company.
Okay, so very last question. It's really, really interesting.
I hope it's not again the grammar.
No. Now it's something like just professional. Some example of provoking questions?
Example of provoking questions. So usually what we do is that we try to, how can we say, like you probably know inside your design if there is stuff that it's like hot topic that can be like the elephant in the room. But again, when you like go out and present your design, maybe try to find out all the things that could like be tricky, and you start like dig deeper into that, like try to break your design, basically. You do this with your customer. We should do this also with our colleagues. Really look at your design and think, okay, what in all of that could go wrong? What we are not sure about it? So, and ask those questions, like.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Nicole.
No,
An
thank you.
applause. An
Thank
applause.
you. Thank you.
Okay.
There's actually a lot of questions that were asked, so you can ask more to Nicole later on. A few things. Let me just close this mess. Okay, before moving on to the second talk, we have just a couple of things to show you. If you're not aware of the outside world, which is very difficult, but there has been our retreat in the past weeks, and as you can see, there was a lot of participation. We were over 80 people in Di Maro, in Val di Sole. A lot of participation in the talks and in the workshops. A lot of participation of people wearing asciugamani in the spa of the hotel and then dancing to techno music over the night. It's real. A lot of participation in our career fair, where we had companies coming over and interacting with the participants. We got plenty of big sponsors, as you can see here. Our main sponsor, OpenMove, actually, would like to invite all the participants, whoever wants, tomorrow for an aperitivo. For Christmas, you can get to Rovereto, to the headquarters of OpenMove. If you want to scan, if you want to have questions or whatever, see what they do, drink something, exchange Merry Christmas wishes. Lorenzo is over there, the CEO of the company, so you can go talk to him later on. If you're interested, the aperitivo is on OpenMove. Second thing, we just closed a partnership with Trentino Sviluppo. So,
Yeah. Basically, this, for those who don't know, this is our amazing website. And in the website, you can find a lot of information. Also, for instance, the slides of the talks, which are really useful and interesting. But you can also look for job postings. We have some, but since we are having a partnership with Trentino Sviluppo, we will have this lovely banner. You can click on it and get into their website, where you can find job postings, especially for the tech field. And basically, you can find a job if you want.
Yeah, so basically, Trentino Sviluppo is, and Invest in Trentino is telling us we are cherry picking the best tech job opening in Trentino, more or less, from companies in Trentino, and we are pointing to their website. So very soon on our website, you will see a banner pointing to this, and they will cherry pick a job position for you. So if you're looking for a job or a career upscale, you can go there and head up to our website. Final information for the night, which is a big news and big spoiler. We already have our next two events planned. The first one will be on January 2023, which means that we don't have a date yet. It may be the 17th or the 24th or the 18th. We still don't know. We are agreeing with the speakers, but we already have more or less the topic, and it's going to be cybersecurity. And the second one is on the 27th of February, which is going to be the second last day of February, immediately at the beginning of the second semester of classes. So you will come back to Trento if you're studying, and it's going to be about space. So we're going to go on a journey to Mars with our speakers. That's it. Sorry for the disclaimer. We hand it over to Maria Teresa for her second talk, and wish you well.
Okay, hi everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. Hi. So first of all, I would like to apologize for the title of my talk. I'm sure your website is not ugly, but still I hope I can share some interesting facts about designing websites with you tonight. So again, like we mentioned before, if you wish to participate in the live quiz and become the final design master of the evening, feel free to do so. You can use the link, and it will start in a little while. So before we get into the quiz part, the idea behind this talk came to me when I was cleaning the house and I had this YouTube video in the background. And the creator said that, so he was advertising Squarespace, which is a very popular no-code platform for creating websites. And as he was advertising it, he said how you don't need any experience as a designer if you want to make a website. And for sure, you don't need to be a designer to create one. However, things can get pretty ugly pretty quickly. So we really don't want that, because having a bad website is like having a grumpy salesperson going around and telling others about our products, expertise, our services, and we really don't want that, because nowadays websites are even more valuable than business cards were in the past. So tonight I will share with you 5 design tips using real-life examples so that you can improve your personal website or the one of your business. Just a little disclaimer. So when I said design tips, what I really meant was not simply visual design, which is maybe what we think of when someone says design, but I really want you to think of the overall experience that the users have when they interact with a product that we put out in the world. So, of course, visual design plays a very important part in all of this, but you will see in the tips how even the visuals have a deeper effect on other aspects as well. So, now we can start with the first question very soon. So what I will do is I will show you a picture of an existing website, and I will ask you what you think is the main design issue on the page. Here is the first one, and the quiz can start now. I don't know who's starting it for me. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, the countdown is going. You can vote. Ok. Proprio andare avanti.
Avanti?
Mm. Okay, so, okay, I admit as a first one, this was a bit tricky, but the correct answer was too many fonts. So already just in this part of the website, we can see that there are 4 fonts being used. And my first tip for you tonight is to avoid using more than 2. Why 2, though? It seems kind of arbitrary. Well, it is a very common design practice, and there are many reasons for that. One being that readers, when they read a text, whether it's on a page or on a website, they tune into a font. So they expect the font to be, the text to be consistent. Not only the letters themselves, but the overall experience. And so if we keep changing the font for every little aspect of our website, the overall result will look messy, incoherent, and also it will be bad for the visual hierarchy On the other hand, if we just stick to 2, like in the second example, the visual hierarchy will be a lot better and everything will be a lot more harmonious in general. Another thing, of course, it's, you might ask, well, which fonts do I choose? A good thing to do is to use contrasting fonts. So as we see in the example on the left, we have 2 fonts which are quite similar, and so there isn't enough contrast to make the final look interesting, while on the other hand, in the example on the right, we have sans serif font and then a serif font. The serif font is the one with all of the decorations and letters, like for example, Times New Roman is a very common one. So if you use 2 typefaces that have this contrast, it becomes a lot more nice in the end. Of course, if you are unsure what to do with fonts on your website, you can just pick one. It's perfectly fine. You can use the bold version for titles and regular for text and buttons and so on. And if you still want to play with fonts, though, you can find several resources online. My favorite is FontPair, which shows many nice combinations that you can steal for yourself. OK, let's go forward with the second question. So again, I will show you a screenshot and ask you what the main design problem is. It's actually 2 screenshots. OK, you can start now. OK, so almost everyone got it right. So the text, especially Gucci there on the first screenshot, is barely readable. And so my second tip for you, as you might have guessed, is that text should be accessible to any reader. Because what happens, especially when we have people who suffer from conditions like achromatopsia or others like daltonism, so what we do is that we give for granted the fact that people perceive the world in the same way as we do, but there are actually several people out there that have disabilities and visual impairments. And so what we can see here, and also in this other example, we see how the picture in the background really is almost of the same color as the text on the foreground, unlike before. So what you can do to avoid this is to start by using a contrast checker. So there are several tools like this one on the web that allow you to check that all of the elements on your website have enough contrast from the background. Now we can go on with the third one. So again, I will ask you what you think is the main design issue on the page, which is this one. So you can start, yes. A little disclaimer for those who don't know this guy. He's a philosopher who talks about politics on TV, those kind of programs where they start screaming at each other. It's quite trashy TV. 5 seconds left. OK, let's see how many got it right. OK, not many, though I do agree that the menu is a huge problem here. We can see that there is no information architecture, no content strategy. However, the main thing that I wanted you to focus on here is the use of colors. So my third tip for you is to use colors wisely. And how do we do that? Well, it's important to use colors in a wise way because colors actually have an effect on our brain. So, for example, red is associated with feelings of anger and aggression, and it can actually elicit a response, for example, in our blood pressure, which is the reason, for example, why red is used for traffic signs, because it really elicits a strong reaction. And of course, not all colors like red have strictly a negative or positive connotation. So, for example, on the other hand, red can elicit feelings of excitement and energy, which is why it's being used by several brands around the world, like McDonald's. And actually, the case of McDonald's is interesting because if you go on their website today, at least the Italian one, they switched red with green, because green is the color that we associate with life and feelings of balance, harmony. It's the color of nature. And I think the reason they switched to this color is because they had so many negative claims and lawsuits about the quality of their food that they really wanted to polish their image through color. But going back to the website we saw before, why were those colors wrong? Well, as we mentioned before, colors can have both positive and negative connotations. And in this case, the negative connotations of these colors come out because, as I mentioned before, the owner of the website, he talks about philosophy, politics, things that happen on international news, so really serious, heavy topics. And so when we contrast this with the nature of these two colors, the negative aspects come out, like immaturity, restlessness, and youthfulness, but in a very negative way. It's too playful. On the other hand, if you use, for example, colors like blue, blue is used by several brands because it brings forward feelings of mental calmness, serenity. And I actually used it myself in a project recently. This is the website I made for a friend of mine who recently became a therapist. And actually, the only constraint she gave me, knowing color psychology, is to use blue, because since blue has such a positive calming effect, it would be really great for people who are currently struggling with their mental health and are seeking for help. Now, let's go on to number 4. So in this case, the question changes. I won't ask you what's wrong, but I will ask you what you think this website is selling to us. You can vote now. 15 seconds. Okay, time's over. Let's see. Okay, only 8% got it right, but I mean, it's just people in suits. They could be selling literally anything, right? So my fourth, before I unveil my tip, I will ask you to do the same thing again. This is a blog, and I've hidden the names of the articles, and I want you again to tell me what this blog in particular is about just by looking at the pictures. So we can start the quiz again. You can vote now. Okay, let's see the results. Okay, almost everyone got it right. It's mental health. Of course, I think because women are the ones who are most likely to seek mental health compared to males from a society point of view. That's probably why many also chose the first option, but you can clearly see here that there are people who are struggling, discussing, who look sad. So the pictures are really tied to the content compared to what we saw in the first example. So my fourth tip for you is to choose pictures wisely. And I will share with you some tips on how to choose the right pictures for your website. So first of all, the pictures should be tied to the content, because our vision is the strongest sense compared to all of the senses that we have. And so if we show a picture that is tied to the content, we will perceive it right away, and it will really help in giving forward our message to the visitor. On the other hand, if the picture is vague, then it won't be helpful at all. And of course, you should also keep it real. We saw before the people in suits who looked heavily photoshopped and fake. And yeah, I've never laughed eating a salad. I don't like salad much, so just avoid pictures like these ones. There are several websites out there that you can use to find good stock photos that are a lot more realistic than the women eating salads. Just a side note, since they're free, what happens is that everyone uses them for literally anything. For example, this is a picture I also used myself in some mock-ups back a few years ago. And as you can see, it's been used in a website about dental health. So she has a smile, so it's understandable. But she's also on the website of the city of Lecce and in the one of a funeral home. Not sure why. So maybe if you can invest in good stock photos, or have a friend or a photographer you know take pictures for your website. And now on for the last question of our quiz. So this time, before we start voting, oh no. Sorry, because again, I will ask you in this case what you think this business is trying to sell to us, but I will go through it with you. So let's see, this is their homepage. So this service helps you take action to create the life you want. Unlike the personal development books on your shelf, the podcasts in your pocket, or newsletters in your inbox, this service helps you take action to create the life you want, because all of the greatest thoughts and ideas mean nothing without action. Okay, now you can vote, if we can. Okay, now you can vote what you think they're selling. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I found this website back in the summer, and as you can see, the visuals are really on point, but I couldn't understand what their product was about, because there was like no free trial or anything. And so when I was preparing this talk, I went back to the website to try and find out. And what I discovered is that not only they changed the visuals, which were actually fine, but they had to completely pivot their whole product, because I suppose people couldn't understand, just like us, what they were trying to sell. So now they sell virtual sessions. So my fifth tip for you is to make sure that your message is clear. And how do we do that? Well, first of all, like we saw before, it took 3 paragraphs in those websites to explain what they were doing, and they failed. So first of all, keep it short. Don't tell the story of your life. Remember that people, when they browse the web and look on websites, they scan. It's not like reading a book when we read specifically every word on the page. People are looking for specific information that they need. So keep that in mind and put the most important information in short words. And then actually some people might think it's sad that we scan that our attention span is so low. It's lower than the one of a goldfish, 8 seconds. But we can still use this to our advantage. So knowing that people read web pages using the F pattern, which we see here on the right, or, for example, the layer cake pattern that we see on the left, what we can do is, first of all, put the most important information, so our mission statement at the beginning of the homepage of the website, so that even if people stop reading at a certain point, we will get our message across. And secondly, you can use typography and visual hierarchy to your advantage. So if you use headings, subheadings, and you chunk the text in good paragraphs, then it will be very easy for people to find the information that they need. And similarly to what somebody asked in the question beforehand, if your mother or your grandmother or any boomer can understand what you are trying to say, then you're good to go. This is a good example. The website of Eric Kennedy, well-known UI designer who makes a good course, and he puts his free statements right at the beginning of the website. So he does design work, he teaches design, and he writes about design. Very simple, straight to the point. So tonight we've talked about typography, accessibility, colors, about having your message come across in the right way. So several aspects of making a good website. But you might wonder if it's enough. And this is a screenshot from a website I used to consult a lot when I was a design student. It's called Bestfolio, and they showcase what they believe are the best design portfolios out there. And what really struck me is how, even if I looked closely at all of them, in the end, there wouldn't be one that stands out from the rest. They all look pretty much the same. Of course, in this case, maybe they haven't played that much with color. They're very minimal, but they all look pretty similar. So remember to showcase your personality. Of course, it's easier said than done, and we shouldn't throw away all of the tips that I showed you before, especially because, like Jacob's law tells us, as people spend most of their time on other sites, when they go on our site, they will expect a similar experience. So you still should keep the cardinal elements in place so that people won't feel lost. However, you can still play with some things to stand out from the competition whenever you're trying to find a client or get a new job. So, for example, once you know the rules of visual hierarchy and of the structure of the homepage, you can still play. And for example, in this case, we don't have a standard grid of pictures of the projects for this designer, but he broke the grid and it creates a very interesting effect to the eye. Then you can play with visuals and animations, so again with color, GIFs, videos, so you can really try and get wild with those aspects of your website. And if it's really not your thing and you want to do something minimal, it's perfectly fine. It's full of very great minimalist websites out there. What you can do instead is play with the content. So for example, this designer, he makes his sense of humor come across through the text. And it's really effective if you want to have people remember you. So these were my design tips for you. I hope they were useful, and thank you very much, everyone. Oh, and I'm sorry, I forgot. Let's see who won the quiz. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We don't know who won.
There were many people with 6 out of 6. Anyway.
Okay, but apparently there were many ties, so you were all good.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people with the 6 out of 6. So great for those of you who got it. Actually, they don't give extra points for the people who answer first, which is bad.
Oh.
Anyway,
Okay.
a couple of questions for you, Teresa. First, how can we deal with the fact that the meaning of a color can change across cultures? That a color can mean something in a country and something else in another one, probably.
That's a very interesting question. So I think in that case, what you need to do a lot beforehand is know who your audience is, or at least who you want it to be. So, for example, if I remember correctly, white in India is the color that symbolizes death, used in funerals and so on. So maybe in that case, if my audience were mainly from that country, maybe I would be wary of that information.
Why do companies think that having a good UI will solve all their product issues? How can we advocate for the importance of a proper user research?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the first part of the question.
Why do companies think that having a good UI will solve all their product issues? How can we advocate for more user research?
So, for sure, good UI plays an important part, because what research actually tells us is that if a website or a digital product in general is pleasant to the eye, people will think that it's also easier to use. So we shouldn't discard that. But I think also, like Nicole was saying in her talk before, it's about having lots of conversations with people, really trying to advocate for design, and maybe start small. So when you're in a room with stakeholders, you have to try and really it's useful to think of them as users who have specific needs, which in that case are business needs. So you can prep for the meeting knowing that, and tell them some things that would be helpful for them to hear, but still try to always talk about the user and really try to bring their focus in that direction. And you can also start small by maybe suggesting short workshop to have everyone aligned, and you can talk about the users there, or you can suggest a small study. Maybe you can start by looking at analytics, so then they will see actual data and think that maybe there's something wrong that needs to be fixed for design for their product.
All right, thanks. A lot of questions, actually. Another one, how to keep balance between unique design and design that is not considered impossible to implement by the coding team?
Yes, I think so. At the beginning, when you start with a design that is maybe too ambitious, I think actually you should go wild and don't limit your ideas too much, because otherwise it will impact your creativity in a negative way. Then, so what you can do is, again, go wild and then try to compromise with the developers and find a sort of middle road. And one thing you can do, especially for animations and some wild things, you can many times find pre-made code. So maybe you can help the developer by giving them that piece of code so that they can maybe use it so that you can have your wild effect on the website without having them do the work.
Very connected to this, where does visual design find its spot in UX? How important is it? Where to draw the line to other visual designers?
So I think it's very important in parallel with the first things that we have to plan when creating a new design. So on one hand, maybe we want to focus on users and so on and their needs. But then on the other hand, we can really go deep into branding because it's really a big part of the overall final effect. So maybe it's something that, at least if we work on our own, we focus on at the end, maybe, but it really has a good, very important impact on the overall UX, I believe.
Okay. There are many questions about services for using stock images safely or tools that simulate the color blindness, for example. There are plenty out there. You can ask Teresa also after the talk, of course.
Sure.
Final question, I would say, what are your suggestions for both academic and personal study?
Okay, academic, well, I am a graduate of human-computer interaction, so I always root for that. I really enjoyed the course back then. And when it comes to other courses, well, there's really several resources nowadays. Maybe over a beer, I can give you a list because I have several that I always look for.
Okay. Just go to Teresa after the talk if you want to know more. I see other question coming about color blindness and services and tools, etc. Just ask her. Thanks again, Teresa, for your talk. Your applause.
Thank you.
Okay, wrapping up the night. I'm not having my smartwatch tonight, so I don't know what time is it, but it's 22:22, which is interesting. We are getting the room ready for the Speck and the beers, because now it's where the party is starting. A couple of things to tell you. First, we don't stress this enough, but Speck&Tech is a non-profit association. We run on your money, on your donations. If you can help us, if you want to grab a beer, eat some Speck later on, get some stickers, whatever, drop a coin, even €1 helps. You can send us money however you want, even with your mobile phone or Satispay, whatever. We really value that money because then we convert that into magically, Speck and beers. Second thing, as you see, there are some tables around the room, which is where we're going to serve the Speck and the beers. You can help clear up this room by stacking your chairs. So we have a model here. Thank you. You can stand up right now. Amazing, you see. These green chairs here can be folded, and we put them here behind or at the entrance of the room. These tiny ones go in the kitchen. No, this way, dude. Oh, God. Sorry for embarrassing you. These tiny ones go in the kitchen. The red one can be stacked. The big black ones we can put them basically around. We clear up the room. We make space for Speck and beers. Enjoy the night. Have a good season of holidays, Christmas, New Year's, whatever. We meet in January for the next Speck&Tech event. Okay? Ciao.